All right, today we're going to look at rewriting equations and formulas. Okay, sometimes these are called literal equations. All right, so only one standard that goes with this lesson. So we've got a whole lesson for one standard, which means it's pretty important. So you need to be able to rearrange formulas to isolate a quantity of interest using algebraic reasoning. So that's the standard that goes with this lesson. To know if you're going to be successful or not, you need to be able to identify a literal equation, use properties of equality to rewrite literal equations, and use or rewrite formulas to solve problems. All right, so key vocabulary that you need to know: literal equation, an equation that has two or more variables. All right, two or more variables considered a literal equation. A formula is a type of literal equation. A formula shows how one variable is related to one or more variables. All right, let's do some practice. All right, so rewriting a literal equation. Remember, a literal equation has two or more variables, so it has more than one variable. So number one says solve for y. So for this equation, 3y plus 4x equals 9, we want to solve for y. So that means we want to get y by itself. So we have multiplication here, and then we have addition here. So remember, when we're solving equations, we're going to undo addition and subtraction first. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. So we have 3y equals, and then we already have a 9, but we can't combine the 9 with a number with an x. So let's write down negative 4x and then just add 9 on the end. All right, so we're just putting this in the form that we will most often see it, which is the variable first and the constant last. All right, so we're still solving for y. So we have 3 times y, so we need to divide by 3. So y equals, and then everything's divided by 3. So you can see that negative 4/3, that's your fraction there. So negative 4/3 times x. Okay, so that's just another way to write what this is right here. And then plus 9 over 3. 9 over 3 can be reduced to a whole number, 3. All right, so this is considered a literal equation because it has x and y. It has two variables there. And we solved for y. So you can see that we did do that. So we rewrote this equation in terms of y. All right, number 2 says solve for x. Y equals 3x plus 5x times z. All right, we see that we have two x's here. So we're actually going to start by using distributive property. So distributive property, we can pull the x out, okay? Sometimes it's called factoring as well, but it's like the reverse of distributive property. So since both of those have an x, we can pull the x out and we're left with whatever's left. So in this case, we pulled the x out and we're left with 3, and then plus, we're left with 5z. So plus 5z. And again, this is just a way to rewrite this expression here, but it kind of isolates the x because we're trying to solve for x. All right, now we have x times this expression, so we can divide by this expression on both sides. Remember, it's an equation, so you always do the same thing on both sides. And since this is divided by itself, it leaves just x. So x equals y over 3 plus 5z. And again, this is considered a literal equation because it has x, y, and z. It has 3 variables. Since it has 2 or more variables, it is considered a literal equation. All right, the next example, solve for x. 20 equals 8x plus 4y. All right, we're trying to solve for x, so let's subtract 4y on both sides. All right, again, we can't combine a 20 with a number with a y, so we're going to just have to write negative 4y plus 20. Just leave those separate. Those are not like terms, so you can't combine them. And then on the other side, that cancels and it leaves just 8x. Okay, again, we're solving for x. We've got 8 times x, so we have to divide both sides by 8. So we're going to have x equals 8 divided by 8 is 1, so it just leaves x. On this side, we have negative 4y over 8, and then we have 20 over 8. So remember, this is all divided by 8, but we can separate these into two parts. Negative 4 over 8y. So negative 4 over 8y is the same as negative 1/2 y. And then 20 over 8, both of those are divisible by 2. So we could rewrite that as 10 over 4. Actually, they're both divisible by 4. So you want to divide it by the biggest common denominator, or common multiple. So 4 goes into 20 5 times, and 4 goes into 8 twice. So again, this is solved for x. So we answered the question. It is a literal equation because it has two variables. All right, the last one says solve for x as well. We have 3 plus 5x minus kx equals y. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the number without an x. So subtract 3 from both sides. So 5x minus kx equals y minus 3. Again, these are not like terms, so we just have to put them down separately. Now both of these have an x. Again, distributive property says we can pull that out, and it's left with 5 minus k. Now we have x times this whole expression. We're trying to solve for x. So the opposite or the inverse of multiply is divide. So divide both sides by 5 minus k. This cancels with this. X is equal to y minus 3 over 5 minus k. And again, that's as far as you can go. You can't get an actual number for an answer because we have multiple variables here. And so we're just rewriting in terms of x because it asks us to solve for x. All right, the next example says rewriting a formula for surface area. All right, surface area, remember surface area would be the area of each side of the surface. So the formula for surface area of a rectangular prism is surface area equals 2 times length times width plus 2 times length times height plus 2 times width times height. Solve the formula for the length L. All right, so we can see 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH. So this one does not have an L. So just like in the last examples, we're going to subtract 2WH from the other side. All right, so S is already here. We cannot combine S and the negative 2WH because they are not like terms. All right, so if I cancel this, what is left on the right? We're left with 2LW plus 2LH. All right, we're trying to get L by itself, so let's pull L out. 2W plus 2H. And right now we don't have to change anything on this side. All right, now L times this expression means we got to divide by this expression. These are actually my favorite kind of equations to solve because they're easy as long as you know what steps to do. You're always going to get finished quickly. So S minus 2WH over 2W plus 2H. Now, if you wanted to rewrite the denominator, I'm going to rewrite this over here a little bit better. S minus 2WH over. Now you can see that both of these have a 2, a common factor of 2. So if you want to rewrite that as 2 times W plus H, that is equivalent. That's the same thing. and that equals your length. All right, so we did solve this literal equation for the length of the rectangular prism. All right, the next problem says you own a rectangular lot that is 500 feet deep. You can see here 500 feet deep. It has an area of 100,000 square feet. To pay for a new water system, you are assessed at $5.50 per foot of lot frontage. You can see this is your frontage. How much are you assessed for the new water system? All right, so the first thing we need to do is say that, okay, it's a rectangular lot. So area equals length times width. All right, so if area equals length times width, we know that we have the length here, but we do not have the width. So let's solve for width first. So it has 100,000 square feet is your area. So let's divide both sides by L. The width equals A over L. So we can substitute the area in. So we're going to have 100,000 over the length, which is 500. And we know that equals W. All right, so we can cancel out the zeros. So we have 1,000 divided by 5, which is 200. So the width is 200. So we know if this is 200, we know that the frontage is also 200. So the question says, how much are you assessed for the new water system? To pay for a new water system, you are assessed at $5.50 per foot. So if you've got 200 feet of frontage, you've got to do 200 times $5.50. So 200 times $5.50 is going to be $1,100. All right, hope you can read that. That does say $1,100. All right, so I rewrote that to make it a little nicer. So you are assessed $1,100 for your new water system.